Today, Logosynthesis turned 21. In human years, that means a transition into adulthood, the moment when a young person steps into the world on their own terms, shaped by their upbringing, yet ready to find their own path. When I look back at the origins of the Logosynthesis model, I see the beginning on January 11, 2005, as you can read in my books. And from that day onwards, I played with ideas and techniques on myself, with clients. I trained professionals, I wrote articles, books, and many social media posts. I refined, tested, and expanded what would be Logosynthesis in the course of the years. And through all those years of experimentation, practice, and reflection, I discovered that this work was more than a method. For me, two lifelong strands came together: my professional career as a psychologist, psychotherapist, coach, and a consultant to organizations on the one side, and my spiritual journey on the other side. From there, and it took me some years to find out how simple it is, I started to understand the self as a dynamic interface between the consciousness of our essence and the learning environment of the matrix, with the help of a body and the mind. And the model evolved through curiosity, experience, reflection, dialogue, and especially through teaching what I'd found, because I learn always a lot when I'm teaching. I never planned to create the global movement we're experiencing here today, with so many people online for this event. I just went with the flow. I didn't have a plan. I was searching for coherence, for meaning, for peace, and I think I've found it for myself, and as it seems for many others as well. And Logosynthesis is the model that resulted from that search. It's a philosophy, a worldview, a theory, and a wide range of methods for many different applications, as you can see in this conference now. And I'm deeply grateful for how much and how far it has grown. So I'm going to share my screen now. So you can imagine Logosynthesis as a tree whose roots reach in several distinct layers of soil. So where do these roots come from? So first we have the ancient Greek schools. So we have Stoicism, and that contributes a view of inner stance and responsibility. We have Epicureanism, that brings attention to relief from unnecessary suffering. That's what we're doing all the time. And the skeptical tradition invites a steady question of rigid beliefs. And from there we have Plato, Aristotle, and Zeno, and they support a vision of an ordered, meaningful cosmos in which human life has a place. And you can also find more recent schools like Montaigne, the existentialists, Sartre, de Beauvoir, and we have David Hawkins about the frequency and our essence, and the concept of essence comes from Ali Hamid Almas, who is a spiritual teacher. And that's the first level, or the first layer of soil. And then we have the second one, and that's spirituality. We draw on various spiritual traditions that shape the understanding of language, presence, and transformation. So we have Buddhist insight that informs impermanence and compassion. We have the New Testament that brings a sense of the word as a living presence. We have a Jewish tradition that contributes to reverence for the creative power of speech and ethical responsibility. And we have a Taoist view of flow, and we have Hindu and Vedantic perspectives on consciousness and self, and indigenous traditions of ritual and imagery that complete this wider field. Okay, and then there's a third layer of soil, and that's psychology. So we have psychoanalysis that brought careful attention to early relationships, inner images, and unconscious patterns that continue to influence your current life. We have cognitive and behavioral approaches that clarify how thoughts, expectations, and learned habits organize your perception and meaning. And then there's humanistic psychology with Gestalt therapy, transaction analysis, psychosynthesis, logotherapy. These highlight meaning as a decisive force in human resilience and orientation. And then we have these recent methods, which are not so old yet, like transaction analysis, Gestalt therapy, and NLP, that offer clear, workable methods for engaging roles, contact, perception, and language in lived experience. And that means that psychological work is focusing on the here and now. And these roots are grown in a fruitful ground, and that fruitful ground is essence. So this is the whole package of the roots. And in fact, this is all about essence and various forms we found for it. Now we come to the trunk. And these roots feed the trunk. That's the core of the logosynthesis model that contains the self with the mind and the body. We have the key concept on the side of essence, that's energy, the power of words, that is the flow of life energy. And then we have the key concept on the side of the matrix, the association, frozen energy in time and space, the matrix itself, and between the flow of energy that comes from essence and the pattern of the matrix, we need a dynamic balance in the self, in yourself as a mind and a body. Then we have a variety of methods and protocols. Kathy just mentioned the basic procedure, but we have much more. We have timelines, we have mapping, we have the Simonton protocol, we have the Pearls protocol, we have the Matryoshka protocol, we have the Dante procedure, and many others which are taught in the practitioner curriculum and the master practitioner curriculum. And then we have Leah with a set of roles and rules and agreements on ethics, professional practice. And we have also a logosynthesis brand to protect the professionals working with logosynthesis so that not everybody just does something. So I planted the seed of that tree. I wrote the books. And if you look at the whole, we've done quite a lot. And I planted the seed of that tree in fertile ground of the southeast of Switzerland, and I took care of what emerged. I have offered seminars in many countries. I created Facebook groups. I wrote articles and books. And with the help of the first generations of practitioners and trainers, we have founded the LIA in 2014. Now, trainers and master trainers are preparing professionals for certification as practitioners, master practitioners, and the next generation of trainers. Other colleagues are applying the model in their work with clients in coaching, counseling, psychotherapy, education, and other fields. Still, other colleagues have written books on various subjects. My books are translated in more and more languages. So at this moment we have new translations underway in French, Russian, Serbian, and even Chinese. So this conference is a sign that we have come a long way, and I want to express my gratitude to all the people who made this possible. And we can tell that the model has become more and more coherent, the foundation is solid, the community is active, And from here, growth will come through diversity, through dialogue, through courage. And we can be pretty content about what we've reached so far. And at the same time, this moment calls for honesty. And if we want to be honest, we have to look into the mirror. That means that we have to look closer at both the trees, the roots and the trunk of the tree. And there we come to a new aspect. And every creation carries the imprint of its creator. Logosynthesis is no exception. I have shaped it through my own filters. I've always been curious, been looking beyond the frames defined and determined by the matrix. I was born into a poor family. I learned early that glass ceilings are hard to break. I have lived with a chronic illness for most of my life that set me apart from healthy family and friends. I'm an intellectual and an introvert, a little bit a monk. I'm shy. I'm not good at socializing and selling. I'm Dutch, and that means that I'm pragmatic and sometimes very direct. I'm a white man, a European, and I grew up in a culture of perceived superiority and colonialism. And I belong to the generation of baby boomers, and I'm getting old. That's the background that has influenced my work. Structured, coherent, careful, but sometimes more restrained than expansive. Every person, every worldview carries blind spots, and the logosynthesis model contains mine. The model has matured within a Western framework, rational, linguistic, conceptually elegant, and that framework has given it clarity and strength. Yet the same frame has also left some areas untouched. Therefore, it's necessary to share ownership, to invite conversation, and to allow new leadership to emerge. I've stepped into the background. In recent years, I've given up most of my tasks in LIA, handed over my trainer role. I'm keeping an eye on the developments, and I rarely interfere with the strategic orientation of the association. I'm staying in contact with the logosynthesis community, writing posts, articles and books. I'm teaching my latest development of the logosynthesis model, and I'm seeing clients to stay in contact with the field. That's what I'm doing now. That's enough to keep me busy. Then there's something else. In August, I attended the World TA Conference in Montpellier, France. I attended a keynote speech by Bill Cornell, one of the first-generation trainers in transaction analysis. He spoke about the life of Eric Berne, the founder of TA, and he provided a fascinating insight in Berne's life and how it influenced the development of TA. He also spoke about Berne's blind spots and how they had limited the development of the TA model. And that keynote made me think. I started to identify any blind spots in my development of the logosynthesis model that might stem from my own history and background. And that was a challenging process and not always pleasant. We're going back to my slides now. So I found 7 serious limitations. Some of them are already addressed by some of you in the community, and others need to be taken care of. So the first one is culture and ethnicity. Logosynthesis speaks in a Western voice and reflects post-war European values. We may need to open the model to other languages, cultures, and ways of knowing. We're working on it. I'm working on it with projects in other culture, Russia, South Africa, Congo. Then the second one is blind spot, gender and embodiment. The model doesn't pay much attention to how gender and the body shape experience and energy. I'm working on a new book about it. We need to listen to women and to people whose bodies carry different histories and preferences. The fact that we have many women in our community that may compensate for this deficit. And on the other hand, it's the question, why don't we have more men? The third one is class and privilege. The current logosynthesis model assumes education, safety, and freedom that many people do not have access to. We need to bring this work into places where life is constrained and where choice is rare. And we have a lot to do there. We can do something by offering local training, by offering online training, but if you don't have an online connection, then already we are stuck. Then another aspect is, or blind spot, is religion and spirituality. The model stands outside the living traditions of faith and devotion. We need to enter respectful dialogue with the great faith and with communities of practice. Some members of our community already are working in this field. And then, which I think is very important in these times, logosynthesis is the collective trauma. So logosynthesis focuses on the individual and tends to ignore the fields of war and oppression. We see these issues often in our work, but we need to extend the work towards collective memory, reconciliation, and healing. And I must admit, this is so big that I even don't know where to start. Another blind spot for me, I'm not a researcher. The model still lacks connection to academic work and empirical study. Some people are already working on it, and we need to build partnerships with researchers who can translate experience into data and language that science understands, without losing what makes the model unique. Colleagues have started various projects, but most practitioners only work with single clients and never document more than their own files. And then the last part is politics and freedom. Logosynthesis has been apolitical in a time when authoritarian regimes increasingly limit the expression of people's essence. We need to affirm that freedom of expression and contact with essence are inseparable. We need visibility in this field through training in such countries, conference presentations, and publications, and that might need courage. There may be more. That's in the nature of blind spots. You can't see them. Over the years, I've become aware of several of these issues, and I've done my best to incorporate them into the model. At this stage in my career, however, my resources are limited, and I can't take on any more tasks. On the contrary, this is where your work starts. And we have already begun to make these blind spots visible. Several of you are working in these various fields. The books have been translated in up to 7 languages. We have training in places on different continents. Professionals have started to write books. Ellen Donoghue, Miriam Noordeman, Jannie Dauma, Karsten Blauwel, Matthias Ecker, Kathy Castle. I hope I've mentioned everybody. The model is taught live, not only where it started here in Switzerland, but also in Germany, Italy, the Netherlands, France, Slovenia, Serbia, Canada, and this year even in South Africa and Serbia. And we reach people in online seminars all over the world. The branches, the leaves, the fruits, they are used to grow. Each of you who works with logosynthesis carries a unique perspective, a specific sensitivity that the model has not seen yet. Together, your perspectives will complete what I could only begin. So, it's yours to create your own branch of the logosynthesis tree, grounded in an understanding of the self as a dynamic interface between the consciousness of your essence and the learning environment of the matrix. The self takes form through your body and your mind, and through the power of words you can restore the flow of life energy wherever it has been blocked in this process. I see a community of practitioners, trainers, and researchers who have already started this work. You're the new generation of gardeners tending to this tree, pruning where needed, crafting where fruitful, creating the conditions for new blossoms in new climates. My role is now simpler: to witness, to share what I know, and to write what others can't. So today, as we celebrate 21 years of logosynthesis, I offer this wish or hope that the model continues to grow through you, that it serves humanity in ways that I, as the founder, have not foreseen, that you stay in contact with your essence while you find a form for your mission in the matrix. Logosynthesis is not just mine, it belongs to us all, and to life itself. Thank you.